Get us started. Great. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Caleb Talley. For those of you who I have not met yet, I am the Director of Marketing Events for the Startup Junkie Foundation. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Startup Junkie Foundation, we are a mission-driven organization based here in Northwest Arkansas with the goal of helping entrepreneurs and innovators achieve their goals and achieve their dreams through entrepreneurship. And we do that in two main ways. One of those is through one-on-one consulting with entrepreneurs at absolutely no cost. And then another way we do that is through events. And during the pandemic, these events are virtual, of course, like this one. And so I would like to introduce you to our presenters today. We have Pledger Monk III, Senior Vice President, Wealth Management Advisor at Merrill Lynch. Pledger joined Merrill Lynch in 1997. He's a native of Arkadelphia. Pledger graduated from Hendrix College and earned an MBA degree from the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. He's a certified financial planner and holds several other investment and planning designations. Pledger and his wife Jennifer live in Little Rock, and they have 7 children: Brandon, Connor, Rachel, Parker, Tori, Aaron, and Emma. And Pledger didn't include this, but I found this on the internet, that Forbes ranked him as a top 5 wealth advisor this year. So I throw that out there as well. Ross Burnett is a senior portfolio advisor, wealth management advisor at Merrill. Ross joined Merrill in 2014. His team worked extensively with individuals and families to provide comprehensive investment and wealth management services. He studied biochemistry, pre-med at the University of Arkansas, was a Fulbright honors student, and with the goal to help others in his career. His path as a wealth management advisor allows him to serve others financially like a doctor serves medically. He is passionate about swimming, cycling, and running, and is training for a half marathon. More power to you, Ross. I will turn it over to you, gentlemen, to start today's webinar.
Hey, Caleb. Well, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. And I can remember back whenever I first graduated from college, you had mentioned, studying biochemistry there, and really just had a major pivot moment in my life, not unsimilar to many entrepreneurs, probably some that we have on the phone that have had to pivot. And I didn't really know all too much about business. You think about it, I had my blinders on. I was treasurer of the Pre-Medical Honor Society. I was really focused in on trying to find ways to learn and develop my business acumen. Well, one of the ways that I was able to do that was really through organizations like Startup Junkie, where you all would provide, and the Venture Center at that time was brand new in Little Rock, so I gravitated towards them. But they would provide opportunities for me to go in and learn from successful business owners, other entrepreneurs, people ahead of me in life, people that are in different fields that just have really good input on things that we should know, and have really learned a lot. So I really hope that Pledger and I can kind of give a golden nugget here to some of the people on the call and that will be listening, down the road, and any recordings are on Facebook as well. So really what we wanted to talk about today is something that we're pretty excited about. It's really just how we track our daily activity and what we do on a daily basis to ensure that we have consistent results year over year and month over month there. I think when we talk about consistency, many of us know that that's crucial in making sure that results really do happen. When we look at COVID and how quarantine and work from home has affected a lot of people, this has been just a true blessing to have this in my life. It's how we track our activity, how we keep ourselves accountable, how we work through our day to ensure that we had a quote good day and that we did everything that we needed to do in order to reach our goals. I also want to note here before Pledger kicks us off a little bit that our method of tracking can be tailored to any business model or any situation. You'll notice that Pledger and I have slight variations in the way that we track ours. He does it digitally. I do mine on paper here. I've got mine written out kind of for the day. He has different ways that he tracks his points. I have certain ways that I track mine. Again, Pledger, like you mentioned, he's been at Merrill quite a bit longer than I have. And so his focus might be more on retaining clients and serving them well. whereas I'm newer. And so my focus would be on gaining new clients as well as serving clients. And how do I do that in a way where I can get to my goal of reaching a certain amount of new client acquisition by the end of the year? So again, Pledger's been here since 23 years ago, leads a very large team at Merrill. And I joined the Hathaway Barnes and Burnett Group about 3 years ago with my senior business partner there, Beth Hathaway Barnes. And Pledger, you want to kick us off and introduce us to the daily activity tracking system?
Yeah, Ross, thanks. And Caleb, thanks for having us today. Actually, we've been really looking forward to this. And although Ross and I both work for a pretty large firm, it's actually really entrepreneurial in spirit. And the way we kind of build our business and practice there really does follow kind of entrepreneurial skills. And so we think of ourselves as kind of being entrepreneurials among a larger organization, if you will. But today's discussion is really going to kind of focus on the system that Ross talked about. It's a system that actually quite a few of us use in the Little Rock office. And it's this daily activity tracking system that Ross mentioned. It's geared directly towards tracking the right amount of the right activities that I need to use. So using it for myself, it's the right activities that I need to be doing to bring on new business, to serve clients that I currently have, and to really fulfill the primary duties that are the roles that I have for the team that I'm part of. It's a points-based system, which we're going to get into, and it's where the points are given for the activities being measured, with greater points or greater weights being given to those activities deemed the most valuable. The goal is to accumulate a certain number of points per day. So for me, my system, that number's 45, and this system plays a very significant role in my overall day, each and every day at Merrill Lynch. It really helps me to keep the main thing, as I believe Stephen Covey said. It helps answer the question Ross alluded to earlier, and so at the end of the day, can I answer the question, did I have a good day? Well, if I got my points, I can say, yes, I did. I had a good day. Quantifiably, I had a good day today. So I believe that this tool is appropriate for anyone in any industry, really at any time in your career. So whether you're new in the business, maybe a little bit newer like Ross is in his roles, or whether you're a seasoned veteran or really anything in between, I think a system like this can be used and be tailored to fit those needs if there's some thoughts that kind of put into it on the front end. Finally, for me, I think it's been very helpful to use during the pandemic while we are having to work remotely and where maybe the scenery and the environment have changed, but the need to continue to do the right amount of the right activities really hasn't changed at all. In other words, it's a playbook. This activity system is somewhat of a playbook for all seasons, and it helps provide some motivation and some accountability to your day when others aren't around to see what you're doing. So with that, I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit of a question that I began to think through over the course of my career. When I started in Merrill, like most folks in the industry, we went through a training program, and I was able to get through that with help from others and some good success and some luck probably along the way. But as I continued in my career, I began to notice that Merrill, and I think many of the firms in our industry, really does a good job of hiring very talented people. I was impressed by the number of people that would come through the doors at Merrill, and found some of them to be just the nicest, greatest people, and thought they had a great chance to be successful as advisors in the industry. But time and time again, I was surprised that just so many of them ended up not being able to graduate the program. And I began to get really perplexed at that. The numbers were very, very low. I felt like, at least for me personally in our office, that it was in the, maybe even the low to mid single digits as far as success rate is concerned. So it just seemed to me to be very, very low. The people were achievers and bright, capable people. I would see them look like they were very busy and doing lots of work that you would think would lead to success. But time and time again, it seemed like, gosh, the numbers aren't where I would think they would be. And so I began to wonder, really, why is that? And the more I pondered it, the more I watched what was going on, I think the conclusion, at least for me, was they were busy and they were doing lots of things, but maybe they weren't focused on the right activities, the right activities to help them successfully graduate the program and be able to build a sustainable career there. So interestingly, it wasn't that their results to be successful weren't listed out there. It was quite clear. Here's what you have to do to be successful, very quantifiably. You needed a certain number of clients. You needed a certain amount of assets and income. So the end result was known what you're trying to achieve. That wasn't what was in question, but it was why weren't they achieving it? when it seemed like that the end was defined pretty clearly. And so I began to ponder that more, and I said, in the end, really, this is somewhat of a numbers game. You can really even kind of back into the right numbers for the right activities to achieve success. If you ask the question, how many clients do you need maybe during the year to be on track to graduate the program, then you can begin to say, well, how many meetings do I need to have to get a client? And then how many contacts do I need to make to get a meeting? So it's really how many contacts to get meetings, to get clients, to be able to graduate successfully over time. So somewhat formulaic maybe. So to me, the answers to those questions determine what you really need to do each day to build a successful business. And I think quite often that may apply to many businesses. It's determine what you're trying to achieve and then back into what does it take to get there. And it may seem a little daunting, but if you can get it on paper and then begin to answer some of those questions numerically, at least I think in our industry, we found that to be somewhat helpful for people. So anyway, after I graduated the training program, as I began to ask these questions and kind of move on in my career, I began to realize that I used somewhat of a tracking system while I was in the training program. But as I was developing in my career and taking on new roles and responsibilities, I began to evolve and let that system evolve a little bit. And so I'm going to display here in a minute with the tracking system that I use today. In a few minutes, Ross is going to display the one that he uses. But up on the screen, I believe, is going to be displayed the tracking system. Ross, is that right? That's going to be displayed up there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Caleb, you got us on that?
Okay, very good. Well,
there we go.
One of the things about this, Ross says, I tend to use this more digitally, and that is true. It's just in Excel. It's actually a very, very simple system. But what I tried to achieve when I put this together, and as I go over this with others, is it is extremely simple, actually. And the way that it works for me is I'm trying to capture, again, the right activities, give myself points for those activities, and weight the activities that are really the most significant for my role with more points. So for me specifically, if you look in the upper right-hand corner of the slide there of the Excel spreadsheet, what I do is actually for our team, we segment our clients into 4 different categories, platinum, gold, silver, and bronze, if those can be seen there. And each advisor may do it a little bit differently. Our team stratifies it typically based on more assets or more production generated by that particular client. So for us, platinum clients might be larger in that sense than gold, than silver, than bronze. For my role on my team, it's been determined that what I do probably most effectively, the things that I should be doing the most, are really things where I'm checking in on current clients, doing portfolio management or planning with those larger clients, as well as I have a pretty significant prospecting mandate as well. And so if it's prospecting activities for new business, or if it's serving relationships of some of our larger clients and doing planning and proactive type work with them, I commensurately get more points for those activities. And so the points themselves don't really matter so much, but you will see that it's stratified between or among platinum, gold, silver, and bronze clients. And again, the larger the clients and the more it's proactive type activities, the more points are given for those activities. As I mentioned earlier, it's primarily to get around 45 points per day. I usually try to get that as a minimum. And I can do that in any combination of those activities. But those activities are the things that I am proactive in. You'll notice there at the bottom of that first little box, there is a category for reactive calls, because during the day, I may try to live mostly out of some of these other proactivity endeavors, but inevitably there are going to be clients that have needs and wants, and I'm being reactive to those. And I certainly have to be responsive, and I have to take care of clients. That's a big, big part of what we do. We want to serve them extraordinarily well. So we have to be to take care of them. But it's easy, I believe, for lots of folks in our business to stay busy being more reactive versus proactive. And I think a lot of us could go through our day and stay very busy. We could stay busy reading about the markets and reactively responding to emails and to people that are calling in, and do lots of things and leave at the end of the day and say, you know what, that was a great day. I took care of a lot of business and people and helped a lot of people. But would I have been focusing on those things that would help continue to build and sustain a business over time and really serve our best clients in the way that they really deserve to be served? I'm not so sure. And that's why this helps keep us focused on that. And so I answer that question, did I have a good day, by in some combination getting 45 points or more, as you can see displayed there. It's a very, very easy system. On the left-hand side is just where I log in what I've done. So with check-in calls, you'll see there are blanks there for each row. I just put in the person that I called. I put the task completed date on there, what segment that they represent, and then the points from that table that go along with that. I do that for each one of those activities. And at the end of the day, there's just a sum button at the bottom that tallies up what I've done. And if I got 45 points or more, like I said, that's what I'm striving to do. Most days I get it. Yes, there are some days that there are reactionary things or other things that may be very important. And so it makes it more challenging. But the goal is each and every day to try to get those points, because I firmly believe that each day, really each successful day, will lead to a successful week over time, which leads to a successful month, and then finally a successful year that can help you reach the goals that you're setting out for yourself. So that's the way I approach what I call my daily activity tracking system. Ross, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you show for somebody that's a little bit younger in the business how you've tailored that for yourself.
Sure. No, I appreciate it. So Caleb, if you'll switch over to there we go. And you just kind of point out here. Perfect. All right, that looks good. So just a little bit of a background. So again, I joined my senior business partner, Beth Hathaway Barnes, about 3.5 years ago. And in the first 3 years, I didn't really use the tracking system all that much, although in hindsight, I wish I would have. It would have made me a lot more focused and organized and probably would have been better off. But for those first 3 years, we actually there was another advisor that left the team prior to me joining, and we retained quite a few of those clients. And really, we spent the first 3 years growing together, getting to know each other on a real intimate level there, and helping with those clients that we had just inherited to kind of allow those people to be comfortable in our system and our process, growing a scalable, repeatable, defendable business model there. And so then about, I guess it was early February, Pledger and I were talking, and we had the opportunity, Beth and I had the opportunity to rearrange our business goals for the year. And really, I could start focusing more on external growth, and only she would really be focused on internal growth. Whereas before, it was both of us focusing on internal growth and making sure that our current clients were happy, satisfied, and doing very well. And so this was a great opportunity for me to really embrace the point system here and to use it as a way to stay focused and be sure that I was doing literally everything that I needed to do every single day. At first, it was quite cumbersome. First, you got to learn a new system. You've got to embrace it, adopt it, all of those things. But on top of that, Pledger mentioned that he was getting 45 points per day. I was going out and getting 75 points per day. And I was doing that every single day for the first 5 months there. And that was extremely difficult. I basically have it segmented out to where I'm either talking to clients or prospects. I don't have on there, like he has, a segmentation of platinum, gold, and so forth. For me, I think all clients are important, but the main point of this is new client acquisition. And so my main point sources will come from talking with prospects or suspects. And just like you all would have clients or people that you sell to in order to have your product or business or service, grow revenue, that's the same concept that we have here. And so I've got a space for 15 on my tracking sheet here, prospects and suspects that I would call or could call every single day. And I would give myself 4 points for that. So, you do the math on that. Let's say I did 15 calls to a prospect or a suspect and I got 4 points each. Well, that's 15 legitimate calls to people, not a cold call, people that would answer my call and know me, like me, trust me. That's only 60 points. So now you think, okay, that's a lot of contacts per day. But for our business and many of your businesses as well, it takes that many contacts, if not more, and multiple times of talking to people to be able to get them to go to a meeting. So ultimately, it kind of goes downward where we've got prospect contacts, and then we want to go to an appointment or a meeting where we would, gather their information, take them through the process, let them know what we do and how we help people. And if they're interested, go through the meetings 1, 2, and 3, which would, not get into too much detail today, but those have higher point values. A meeting would be worth 8 points. A proposal would be worth 3 points per $100,000 of proposed assets that we would manage for them. And so you start to see that if you had $1 million proposal, 3 points per 100,000, that's a 30-point proposal right there. And so your point totals get much higher whenever you start to do the activities that really help enforce what your business model is trying to do. And for me, that's to grow. Now, I also get client service contacts. I get 2 points for a client call, whether that's reactionary or proactive. And so I make up my client service contacts and be sure that I have, 3 or 4 or 5 of those every single day, just to be sure that I balance that out. As things evolve, you can evolve this point system as well to meet what your needs are. Again, I said I got 75 points a day for the first 5 months. And then just this month, I've changed it to where on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I go and do 45 points a day. Well, I've added several new clients. I've added 4 new households that have about $250,000 or more with me, and several others that are a little bit under that. And so those take quite a bit of time compared to what I was doing. And so I found that as you grow, you have to adapt and service your existing clients well, or else you won't have clients anymore. And so that's why I've altered that. And you could do the exact same thing. And of course, I'd be happy to get into that with you one-on-one or in a Q&A after this to kind of help go through some of that. Goal for the team was to bring on 6 priority households for the year. I mentioned that I've brought on 4 at the beginning of the year when Pledger and I were talking. I literally thought that was going to be impossible. I mean, that's quite a few households in 1 year. And, you look and see kind of on the scoreboard, if you will, at Merrill, kind of some of the really high producers or some of the really good senior people are bringing in that type of numbers. And so for somebody that's in, my 7th year, I thought, well, I could probably do that, but I'm not sure if it's possible. Well, now I'm at 4 and I'm 6 months into it. So I know it's possible. It's just making sure that you have consistent activity, that you track every day, and that you do it well. If you listen to what Warren Buffett has to say, the power of compound interest, and, I think it was maybe Einstein that said it's the 8th wonder of the world. I mean, it does things more than just for your money. It does things for your time and your efforts and anything that you do. Let's see here. It's not easy to get points. Reaching out to 15 people, 20 people a day is fairly difficult. So sometimes it's like a treasure hunt. For me, it's going through my phone book. It's seeing who have I not talked to in a long time. And I've got almost 2,000 contacts in my phone book. Well, surely somebody in there could be a client. And sure enough, that happened to me back in July. I called somebody up that I hadn't talked to in about 5 years, and now he's a client. But that was part of the treasure hunt. Who can I go find and talk to and get a phone call with that I could then go get a meeting with later on down the road? Kind of the same thing applies to any business model in that regard. I think that pretty much sums up what I have to say on that. One of the most helpful and impactful things, which Pledger is going to get into here in some details, around accountability. So Pledger, you want to talk about that? And that's certainly been crucial in this being successful.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. And, we've spent most of the time thus far just talking about, we have a system and here's what ours looks like and how we get up each day and kind of know what our day is going to look like around that system. One thing I did want to mention is we really track and give ourselves points for the things that we can control. So both Ross and I and other people that use a system like this that I'm around, when we launch a call to somebody, we're in control of that. So if I'm physically making a phone call to somebody and choose to do that, I'm in control of that call. I'm not in control if they answer the call. So one of the things I do though is if I launch a call and I leave a message for that person, I get points for that because I was in control of launching the call, wasn't in control of whether they answered it. You can do the same with emails and other things where you're proactively doing something. It's the fact that you're doing the right activity and you're giving yourself points for the control that you exhibit, not necessarily the response on the other side. The final thing I would say is I do think this can be tailored to most any industry and any business. The activities may look totally different, depends on the roles and the functions and the type of industry. But the idea, no matter what function you're in, I think it can apply if you just ask, what are the right activities that I should be doing each day, and measure those and track those. So I know we're coming at it more from an entrepreneurial spirit because that's what Ross and I live out a lot of our day from, and probably most of you on the call do. By definition, but I do think it can be applied across functions in any organization. What Ross mentioned a minute ago is also really crucial. It's not just doing the activities each day, although I'm a self-starter, Ross is too, and probably everybody on the call is. I do think it does provide self-accountability, but having a partner or somebody or more than one person that's helping to ask you, how are you doing today? Are you getting your points? Is it working? That you can have accountability with, we think is really important. I serve in two roles with Ross. Ross is a friend of mine, and so he asks me each day, you know, how am I doing? Am I getting my points? I do the same for him. We talk each day, even if it's just for a few minutes. Each morning we have that time blocked off to do that. So we know the call's coming at 7:30 each morning, and we're checking in on each other. And we think that's really, really good. It's a partnering process in that sense. Even though we work for two different teams in the office, it's a way that we're just encouraging each other and help holding each other accountable to it. I serve in a second role with Ross, though, as I really mentor him as well. And so it's not just peer-to-peer getting points. Ross will quite often ask me, hey, I talked with somebody yesterday and the conversation didn't go exactly like I expected. Can you help me with that? So we do a lot of that as well. And it probably makes me better too, just as I have an opportunity to coach and maybe talk through some issues and think through them. So I enjoy that, and Ross and I think both benefit from doing that. But having a mentor or a coach or somebody and a friend that you can work alongside, if you will, we think is helpful. We do one other thing. We have a third person that's involved. He's on my team that actually meets with Ross on Friday mornings by phone now. But it's a quick 15-minute check-in, and it's a little bit more maybe clinical, if you will. He's not meeting with Ross every day throughout the week, talking with him. It's just that Ross knows he's going to present his weekly results on Friday to Jeff, who does this with him. And so Jeff's looking at it more weekly. He's asking him about the quality of his points and are they beginning to get the results that he wants them to get. So we both bring a little bit of accountability to Ross's process as well. And we think those are helpful. If I were going to summarize kind of all of this from my perspective, you know, I think some type of tracking system, whether it's this or something else, is really helpful. For us, tracking the points really seems to work. It is a system that builds a process around our day. So we kind of know going in, there are all kinds of things that are going to bombard us. But if we can have a system and a process that we follow in the midst of those things we have to react to, we think it keeps us on track to kind of focus on those real important things. Again, as maybe Stephen Covey calls them, really important, but not necessarily urgent in the moment, but very important to do each day to build a successful business over time. It really keeps us focused, as we said, so focused on the right activities, helps free us from some distractions. Again, when I saw people maybe not graduating the training program like I thought they would, people that I thought would be highly successful, I think sometimes they really were distracted. They were busy, but they were doing activities that really were not the types of things we would suggest that they be measuring day in, day out to build a successful business. We think this actually makes it kind of fun as well, you know, trying to hit our points each day. That's something I get energized by. I know Ross gets energized by that as well. And I do, as we've said a couple of times, I think it really does allow us to answer the question, did we have a good day, in a way that we would like to be able to define a good day. And so for me, that is 45 points or more really is a good day. And then finally, as we've said, we do believe it's a building block. Each day, each successful day leads to a successful week, hopefully to a successful month and a successful year, which can generally lead to a successful career for people. So for me, I want to thank everybody for letting us be part of this. I love getting the opportunity to talk and just try to help and share ideas. So, Caleb, thanks so much for having us. Ross, I'm going to turn it back over to you to conclude for us here.
Sure. Yeah, thank you everybody for joining in, and of course, Caleb, thank you for having us, and it's been great to get to know you a little bit better. We actually overlapped there at Fayetteville and met each other way back when, but thanks again, and happy to do anything like this in the future. And of course, if anybody has any questions, I see a couple here in the chat. Caleb, do you have anything while we kind of read over this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go ahead and if you have a question for Ross or Pledger, go ahead and drop them in the chat box. And while y'all think of questions, I will go ahead and plug our Startup Week, which is upcoming September 14th through 18th. Tickets are on sale on our website, startupjunkie.org. Each day features both virtual and in-person activities, as well as various food, wine, beer, and cider pairings, most of which can be delivered to your home. Each night highlights the Northwest Arkansas venture ecosystem through televised storytelling of a great deal of entrepreneurs, innovators, and all of those programmings. You don't have to have a ticket to view all of those programmings. Tickets are more for the extra stuff. All of those can be viewed on Fayetteville Public Television, YouTube, social media, and more of that. So you can find out more information on that on our website, startupjunkie.org, and there's a tab at the top of the page. All right, we do have some questions that have come in. Demi asks, can you say more about the points for strategy accountability meeting and team meetings?
Yeah, and this is Pledger. I'll answer that one. I didn't address that when we were going through the slide, and that is a good question. So it is true that I want to give myself points primarily for focusing more on some of our larger clients, on our prospecting endeavors and those types of things. As Ross said earlier, all clients are important and critical that we serve them and serve them well. But I do want to focus a little bit more during the day on actual client meetings, client calls, or prospecting meetings and prospecting calls. However, to be able to do our job as effectively as we can, our team does have a few meetings each week. We don't want to over meet by any stretch of the imagination. These are very, very important, critical meetings that have a real strategic role in them. But one of them is our team meeting. We do that on Tuesday. So we actually did that this morning at 9 o'clock. It's where all of the advisors on the team meet. And again, we're in the financial industry, I realize. But for our industry and for our team, we meet, we're discussing what's going on in the market, the economy. We're looking at all of our portfolios that we use and manage and asking the questions, are they working the way they need to be? Are we missing things? We read and think a lot outside of office hours, and we collectively bring that to the table during this hour team meeting, if you will. And so that's a 10-point once a week meeting, but I do give myself 10 points for that, which is a pretty significant amount of points because the value of that is really, really important. Again, I don't want to meet to just meet. That one's a really, really critical one. And then we also will have some shorter meetings. I put on there, for example, that Ross and I talk each morning. I didn't elaborate beyond just the accountability from that meeting, but I give myself 5 points for it. It usually lasts between 30 to 45 minutes each morning. A big part of that is accountability, but another really big part of that is Ross is much more technologically savvy than I am. And I learn a lot from him, and I build that into those meetings as well, because there's just been a proliferation this year of different technological features at Merrill that we can use for ourselves to communicate, that we can work with clients with, especially since we're working remotely. Ross is really good at that. And so for the time being, I give myself 5 points for that because it really does help me in my business, and I don't want to miss that meeting. There are a few other meetings that we have I don't give myself really points for. But those two I see as critical enough that I'm actually going to give myself points for them and make sure that I do them.
And Daniel had a question, a two-parter. How do you determine how to weigh the point value of each activity? And from a schedule perspective, do you have a method for deciding when to do each activity?
Pledger, you want to grab the first part and I'll grab the second part? How
Yeah,
to determine the point value, the weight of that?
yeah, that's good. Well, and although this this method that we're showing on the screen is something that I use, and then Ross, the one he showed, is the one he uses. It wasn't that we just created this completely on our own out of thin air. There, over 20 years ago, there was an article in one of the research publication that I read that talked about having some kind of a point system or tracking system, and I used that as a launching pad into this. And the points were somewhat close to the way that I weight them here. So for me and my role personally, you'll see that the most points are given to having one of two things: either a portfolio review or planning meeting with some of our largest clients. And the reason that gets the most points is because quite often some of our largest clients actually have the most complexity. From a financial planning standpoint, they may have more estate planning needs or issues, or protection planning issues, as well as all types of investment management issues. And so they can take more time. Those clients do tend to generate more business for us too. So the idea is to weight those activities more heavily. And the same with new business. If it's potential for a larger new family, for example, I give that about the same amount of weight as I do serving a really good current client. But I felt like, just based on a day, if I get 45 points in a day, I could have 4 meetings with either a really large client and or a combination of prospects that are significant. And that might be my day. For example, I would have 4 meetings there. If I had a strategy meeting with Ross, that's 45 points. I could literally get what I need for the day by doing that. Now, the reality of it is, if I have 4 significant meetings in a day like that, there's going to be quite a bit of follow-up that I have to do that I give myself no points for. So in other words, I am going to have to do follow-up, and there'll be some reactionary things that I'm really not giving myself any kind of points for at all. But if I focus so much attention on larger clients, larger new business where there is more complexity, then I want to give myself more points for that. However, all clients are important. They're significant to us. When we take on a client, we want to serve them really well. But I give less weighting if it's less complexity and less amount of time that's given. So I may have an hour-long meeting with a client that has lots of complexity. I may be doing the same type of portfolio review with a client that doesn't have as much complexity, and it just doesn't take quite as long. The follow-up's not quite as much. So I tend to weight that a little bit fewer in points. So that's how I do it from my perspective. Again, you can see with my role on the team as one of the lead advisors, going after new business and serving some of our largest, more complex clients is where I need to be spending more of my time. So I do give myself more points and weight more for those activities. Ross, you might speak to that briefly from your standpoint and then answer the second part of the question.
And I think you said it very well, especially, the history of the point system and how it's evolved. And I would just echo a lot of what you've said on that. A lot of it was seeing what worked for the generation that came before me, and then let me adopt just that same system and then evolve as needed to fit what I see works with me. And so that's why I wanted you to answer it first, since you're a couple generations ahead there, because it has worked, and we've seen other advisors be very successful in that. Of course, my weight, I had the same weighting, but I also want to be able to get more points, 75 points. And so I've seen that might be an evolution. Okay, 45 points helps you maintain clients. 75 may be enough to help you gain clients. And we've seen that be true. Even as I kind of scale back from 75, 5 days a week to 75, 3 days a week, I'm still kind of hesitant to accept that as true, because I'm in this 1 month period where I'm saying, well, I don't have as much stress. I don't have as much to do. My hours are about the same as they were in the first 5 months, but will the results still be the same? And that's to be determined. And so if the results are not the same, but I still have the same goals, I'm just going to have to find another way about pursuing my day. On the next question there, from a schedule perspective, how do you have a method for deciding when to do each activity? For me, I'm a firm believer in, first and foremost, talk to your clients, talk to the people that you serve, how they want to be talked to, whether that's email or a phone call, a WebEx like this or a Zoom like this, FaceTime, a text message. I find that a lot of people right now are really open to scheduling meetings via text because they're with their family, they're at home. They don't necessarily have that privacy that they would in an office when they're at work or whatever it might be. And so I've started to adapt those things, but really the timing of it, I'm most active. My brain is most active, I think, at the peak of its potential between 12 o'clock and 3 p.m., 3:30. And so you'll look at my tracking sheet that I have here, and I might not have but a third of the points up until noon, but then I go from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock or noon to 3, and I'm just getting points left and right, calling people, happy about it. I got a big smile on my face. Maybe I just had lunch or I'm about to have lunch. And for me, that's the most productive time of the day. So I think whenever you look at, how you structure your day, you don't fight yourself on it. Don't feel guilty for not being productive every minute of every day. As long as you have your points here and you know that you're doing what you need to do on a daily basis at the end of the day, then you can structure your day however you need to. For me, again, that's kind of, we got our 7:30 call, Pleasure and I do. That warms up the day, kind of warms us up there. And then I do a lot of activities that service clients up until lunchtime. And then once lunchtime hits, I start making a lot of outbound calls or texts or meetings or whatever, and try and schedule my meetings for the afternoon. If a client wants to meet in the morning, sure, that's no problem. Whatever fits the schedule. And as long as that they're happy and they feel important, that's what matters to us. But again, I just echo, don't beat yourself up if you don't have productivity throughout the day, every day. Find your sweet spots in the day and really focus on those.
I think that is a really good question. And Ross and I and others have kind of thought through this for each of us individually. Ross's day and my day actually will look different from each other, even though we're following the same activities. We're meeting with clients or we're going after new business. But I'm actually more focused and productive in the mornings. His most productive time is actually when I probably am a little bit less on, if you will. But at the same time, I'm part of a larger team, and I have one of my assistants schedules a lot of our meetings for us. And I give my assistant flexibility to schedule those meetings when it really works best for the client. And so she just puts it on my calendar. And, she'll generally kind of limit meetings that she schedules to about 3 a day. It's a little unusual for her to put more than that out there. I'll do it if I need to. But those meetings, it's a schedule based on our clients and who I serve, and she knows who to schedule and when. We also have a system for how we reach out to our clients by phone call every month. So I'll call a certain group of clients every month, and it's across that spectrum of platinum, gold, silver, and bronze. But so my day is scheduled somewhat by the meetings that my assistant puts on the calendar. My months are scheduled by the number of calls that they're putting out there for me to call. And then, as Ross said, how we actually execute around those meetings that are put on the calendar may be different for each of us. There are certain things I'd rather do earlier in the morning. There are certain things late in the day, if I'm starting to get a little bit tired, that I would rather do late in the day. So I don't really like having a lot of meetings after about 3 o'clock, for example. That's when I would rather start doing some of my more reactionary things. I feel like I'm on a little bit more in the morning period, anytime in the morning, for example. So if it were up to me, I'd probably schedule some of my more complicated meetings with clients and stuff in the morning. But you can have fun with that and work through those types of things. But I hope that answered the question there.
We have one more question. This one's from Jeff. Jeff asks, or says, these are good output measures. How do you correlate the outputs to measurable outcomes?
Yeah, and Ross, I might start with that one if that's okay with you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the reason I say that is just through the years, and I think that's an exceptionally good question. I think it really kind of started with me back to that question, why are so many people not able to graduate the program or not successful when you see what the results have to be? And so we have spent time and we've tweaked and retweaked and rethought about what are those activities that get to those outcomes. And so when you're in the training program, it's pretty defined what the outcomes need to be. But when you're out, like Ross is now, he's part of a team and he has a role now that's really started this year in earnest, where he's got a significant task of bringing on new business. We've spent a lot of time around, okay, well, if you need to bring on, let's say 6 is the number he needs to bring on of certain size, how many meetings do we think it's going to take to get to that based on your past experience? But also, the more meetings you have, you're also learning, and it's practice and it's training, and you're getting better. So we started out the year as a large number of meetings he would need to have. It's built into that 75 points. That's why he has to get so many more points than I do, incidentally, is he's a little bit younger in the business. He doesn't have quite that 10,000 hours of practice yet, but every meeting he has, he gets better. But he also has a mandate that's pretty large to bring in new business. So how many meetings does he need to have to get the number of clients he needs? We then say, how many contacts does he need to have to get the number of meetings that he needs? And then how many initiations of contacts does he need to actually have somebody answer the phone or respond to it? So we back into it. And then because we talk daily and he meets with Jeff weekly, we're tracking that. So I would say for you, Ross, if you agree, tell me if you agree or disagree, but you've been doing this in earnest since really about, I guess, March for sure at this point. So it's 12 months now, almost. I think we've tweaked it a little bit here or there. In the beginning, we thought it might take more points to get you there, and that's why it was 75 points every day. The number of contacts, the meetings, you're ahead of schedule with having 4 already out of the 6 that you need for the year. And so he also didn't want to burn out. So he began to back down the points just a little bit in there because it looked like he probably didn't have to get quite that many. But I would say he's still tracking. So that idea of, are my contacts and my meetings and those things leading to the results, you always have to come back to that question. And for us, we think it is for Ross this year. For me, just because I've been doing it a little bit longer, I have a pretty good sense for that. And we've been able to reach the goals that have been set out for us by following the system that I follow has generally been able to do that. So it's proactive, it's measuring those things. It is what Stephen Covey calls, again, kind of the important but not urgent things. So I just can't stress enough that both Ross and I are doing other things throughout our day that are not on these sheets where we're being reactive. We have to read things and other things that we don't do during the day. So we're giving ourselves points for those important activities that are not urgent in the moment, but are there to build over time. And again, I think as we see it for you, Ross, we're getting into a rhythm after 6 months of what looks like will work. Do you agree with that?
I do. Yes, I do agree with that completely. And one point I'd like to add is people that have also done it, like Toby, for example, he's been able to figure out how many dollars of production, how many dollars of revenue he might add for every single point that he gets. And so, Jeff, to answer your question, I don't have that figured out yet, but there's another guy that we work with that uses a system the same way that we do. And he can tell you right now, it might be $200 for every point that he gets would be new production or something like that. But if you do it very consistently and you track it long enough, that's the goal. How do we figure out what it takes to reach that goal per point? So that's what we're backing into.
Yeah, and the advisor that Ross mentioned, he is an engineer by background, and he really, kind of engineers it, if you will. But I think it's great for him to be able to say, hey, based on my number of years, he's been doing it about 10 years now. And he would say, this is, what the points kind of equate to per dollars based on that period of time or history of using it. So you can get detailed with it as you want. I do think it's helpful, but the goal, I guess, in summary, I would say that we have found that the results the goals that we set out to be successful for the end of the year, this type of activity, and we do tweak it, we do change things here and there. We've got to constantly monitor it, but currently has tended to lead to the results we're shooting for.
Yes. Couldn't have said it better myself.
if there are no further questions, I guess we'll wrap up and give everybody 10 minutes back of their time. Ross and Pledger, we appreciate your time, appreciate your willingness to share the system with us.
Sure.
I know those viewing have gained something from it, and hope to collaborate with y'all again soon on maybe another webinar in the future.
That sounds good.
And
Caleb, thanks so much. We appreciate everybody. Thanks for everybody who attended today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for signing up and attending. We appreciate it. We'll see you all soon.
Take care.
Have a good day.
All right. Thanks.